What's up? What's happening? And welcome back to GC Talks, man. We got another great one for you today. But first, before we get started, man, I would not be doing a great service if I didn't say happy birthday to my brother, my cousin. Today is his birthday and he joining us today on this talk. So, you know what I'm saying? Before we get started, man, we definitely want to wish you a happy birthday and many, many more, man. You want to say something before we get into it?
Hey I'm blessed, man. This C36, I know people say, they gotta wait for that 40 or that 50th, but I'm treating every year, even if it feel like an odd year, 36. I'm 36. Most people wouldn't look at that as a milestone, but I just look at every year as a blessing. You never know, you know what I'm saying? So I'm thankful, man.
All right, there it is, man. We love you and we wish you many, 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 many more. So, all right, man. Let's get into it. So today we decided that we wanted to talk about, this is a good topic right here. It's being Black in America holding you back from success. Man. First I want to start off and ask, is there any specific situation that you guys can remember where y'all dealt with racism? Firsthand, not overt, but firsthand.
Yeah, you want to kick it off, or how you want to do
that? I'm thinking of if I've experienced anything like that. Honestly, with me, and I feel like this is probably a common thing for a lot of people. I don't want to speak for other people, but for a lot of people in my situation, I feel that we didn't experience that same overt racism that maybe people from your generation might have experienced, or our parents' generations and their parents' generations. More so, it's more like a discrimination, but it's not like that's racism. Like, how you can, there's certain acts of racism that you can point at and you just know it and you can feel it. You know what that is. Where at certain instances, it's like, okay, is that racism or is that person just tripping? You know what I'm saying? Like, let me not just jump to the gun. Or it might, even if what they're doing is a byproduct of racism, I feel like for instance, the event that sticks out of my mind is like whenever I get accepted into my school, I get accepted into Penn, and there are older white teachers at Harris Central saying, "Wow, I can't believe that." Like, no, not Keon, he ain't get in. What are you talking about? Like, students are telling them about me getting in, and they're like in disbelief, not happy disbelief, but like y'all tripping disbelief. Like, they did not believe it. And so, like I said, I could focus and be like, "Oh, that's racist. That's X, Y, and Z," but man, that's just an ignorant person. I don't focus my I don't want to give an ignorant person the power to stir that within me, because racism is a strong word,
But so I got a question. I know cuz he running the questions, but was that racism, or you in a town of 50 to 60,000 50 to 60,000 population, and then especially being in the social area, you know what I'm saying, like the population is very small, well, not quite social, back where we went to school at. And what do you think is more of just disbelief that someone's from a small town and it has nothing to do with race? You know what I'm saying? Like, it seemed like anything that come up in a person that don't look like you, it's just like that's the go-to move sometimes, where it's like, oh man, they racist, and it's like, what were they racist, or were they just like, wow, like, like he went or she went, it could have been a female, black or white, but it's like, how many people from our school actually went to Ivy League, like known for producing Ivy League, you know what I'm saying? So like, like, so giving people sometimes the benefit of the doubt, as black people, how do we sometimes like immediately go to, because it was a white person and they made a certain comment, they racist.
Right. That's fair, but I feel like there's always going to be both sides of that coin. And that's why I always try to stay away from the racism key, because racism, that's something that I can't control. So even if it's a teacher that's had previous racial experiences, like racist things or whatever going on, or if it's a teacher that doesn't have none of that going on, you know what I'm saying? That, like I said, that emotion that becomes attached with that, like that power, what I feel, how I react to that situation, that's what I can control. And so that's why I say I try not to because I like I'm saying, I brought that situation up because I had peers in that situation being like, oh racist, tripping, blah blah. And I was like, that's not even, let's not even go there. Like it ain't even about that. Let's focus on what's big. That the fact that I'm doing this and the fact that I'm trying to empower other people to do this.
Okay. What about you, Cuz?
Repeat the question.
So have you ever experienced, racism firsthand? Not overt racism, but like in your face, like, oh wow, like this is really happening to me right now.
Yeah. Not many times, to be honest with you. I do remember there was some times where I do remember when we was in college and we were downtown, and we were downtown, just having a good time. And we had parked and got out, and it was this guy walking down the street, and I could just, I could just see the hate in his eyes, and he basically was like, hey, I don't even really like to say that word, but hey, you in whatever, get out of here, go back to your country. But it was more laughable than anything. You know what I'm saying? Like it didn't even. We were like, we could toss this dude up and get in trouble, but what's the point of that? You know what I'm saying? And so, but in terms of having all these different experiences to be triggered and emotionally charged, in terms of my direct experience, not so much. And it's funny that you asked that question because, when you see things on TV, and there was a time that I got absorbed in that and I'm, feeling some type of way about a whole bunch of stuff. But then when I really started asking, I've asked myself that question before in the past, and people would look at me crazy. But I would actually also ask other people like, yo, just out of curiosity, like, just nasty, like that racism from you can't drink at the same fountain as us type, and they could kind of impact your life in a certain way. Have you had that experience? And when I would ask people, like, because I would see people get so emotionally charged, but then I would ask them that question, not from a challenger standpoint, and they really didn't have a lot of examples to really point to. And I would say, if you had to count on your hand how many times that it happened to you, like most people couldn't use all of their hands, like, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, it just kind of, it was curious. I got pretty curious about it, but it's definitely an interesting topic. It's very triggering for us as Black people, but I haven't had that many experiences, to be honest with you. And I'm not, what's the new word, capping? I'm not capping. Like I really hadn't had that many experiences like that. Like,
yeah, even me, man. Like, it's actually been a while since I've had, and I'll be honest, I haven't really had a situation that was like overt. You know what I mean? Since probably I moved out of the South, to keep it a buck. Since I moved out of the deep South, like I hadn't really had something overt in my face that made me say, oh wow, like I'm experiencing racism. And then on the flip side of that, you know what I'm saying, and which we can kind of segue into, is I feel like I've dealt with more of, systematic or structured type racism, those type of situations, meaning like some of the rules and regulations, especially dealing with cops, things like that I feel more are against us in that type of way, but not necessarily like racist people, so to speak. Because I personally think it's a difference, right? We know that there's rules and regulations that's in place that don't really fit us, right? And so I feel like I've dealt more with that than just coming across a lot of racist people. So yeah. So now, you know what I'm saying? I want to ask that question. Has anybody dealt with, systematic, structure, having issues with racism based off of that So not necessarily like a person like in your face, I hate blacks, you know what I'm saying? But like seeing like some of the structures that have been in place, and you like, hey, it's kind of against me to win in this situation. So I got to figure out and do my research on how I can come up.
Yeah, you wanna kick it?
Yeah, I can kick it. And so I think for me, in terms of that systematic, I think that is the far more prevalent form of racism today, in terms of, at least with my generation. Like you said, we don't see these overt attacks, and we don't see, at least in our daily lives, like the odds of you, especially like with us being from Mississippi, like with us being born in in 80s, 90s, 2000s, the odds of us seeing a lynching is far less than us being born in the 1880s, 1890s, in 1900s. You know what I'm saying? But I think one thing that we don't really realize or something that we underestimate, is that social media, like that's such a powerful tool, in that it almost, if you let it, it'll just be throwing racism at you all day. You know what I'm saying? In terms of, like, you're looking at all these videos of assaults and things like that, and it's just replaying in your head. And so I think that's something that we underestimate too. Whereas back in the day, you might have heard about it on the news, or you would have heard more personal stories. That was all you had to go on. Now you just recycling other people's personal stories in your mind. But back to the piece on systemic racism, I feel like we all experience that. I feel like every day we experience that, but I feel like I feel like we don't have any choice but to experience it. But I think what you can control is how you experience it. Are you experiencing it from the mindset of, man, I ain't never gonna be able to overcome what Massa did to my ancestors and them? Or are you gonna look at it from the perspective of, look at the progress we've already made in the time since then, and how am I gonna continue carrying that baton forward?
Yeah. Yeah. Systematic racism. It's really hard to fight a battle that doesn't have a face. And spending all your energy and time on those things. Like, when I look at the things that has happened in my life or has not happened, and when I look at it from a personal accountability standpoint, some of those scenarios that I was in, it had nothing to do with racism. I made bad choices. Like, and yes, absolutely, there's things that has been put in place, but I'm trying to decipher how much of it was lack of knowledge, self-sabotage, controlling the controllables. I guess my biggest concern with making that the focus is, have you maxed out everything that you have at your disposal that you do have control over, or is it just like that's your go-to move when stuff not working out in your life, but you operate well below excellence? It's like you're operating extremely mediocre, and then that's your go-to move because you're not getting ahead of life that everybody racing, or you so caught up in this whole racial thing. You know what I'm saying? Like,
So
and that's you justifying you not getting to where you need to be.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you this, because this is something that I've questioned and asked myself. So I'm gonna ask you guys: have you thought about it from the perspective of, you know what, man? Maybe it's more classism than racism, because most of the things that I experienced, right, when it came to these things was when I ain't had no money, right? Like being in the hood, because we know, first off, hoods are over policed, right? So when I didn't have money or lived in the neighborhoods that I live in now, that's when I really experienced everything. So do we think it can be equated to your class more than race? Let's speak on it, man, because I think that's something that we really don't talk about when it comes to this situation.
Ken, I'll kick it to you. It'd be good to hear your perspective first.
All right. So yeah, I think that's a fair point, in that I feel like I think you're right in the sense that we maybe underestimate the impact of classism and overestimate the impact of racism. I'm not going to say racism doesn't play any factor in it because it does, and rightfully so. And I feel like we need to, because we're so in the center of it, we need to like take a step back and like look at the word racism and just look at it like in the sense of anybody from any culture is going to favor people from their own culture naturally. Humans are meant to favor people from your own group. That's how we survive. Groups, we're meant to be in groups like that. However, once different groups start interacting with each other, and we get into this diverse America, people put those differences aside because they recognize that we can achieve a common goal, which is money and survival and a better life here. And so it doesn't play as big of a role as I think people, let it play. I think more so it's who is somebody that's going to help me gain money. I'm going to try my best to benefit them. And right now, I feel like our people might be in a situation where we're not a benefit. We're not economically benefiting somebody or benefiting them in the wrong way. It doesn't benefit them financially to empower us. I think maybe that's how we need to be looking at it instead of, oh, they trying to throw us down. Man, they don't care enough to throw us down. I mean, if they get paid to throw us down, they will. But if they get paid to pick us up, I'm sure they will. We got to make it make sense. We got to pay ourselves to pick ourselves up.
Great point.
Yeah.
Great point. I like that. I mean, because that's something that I feel like we don't take accountability and we don't look at. You know what I'm saying? Is ourselves, right? So a lot of things we like to do is deflect. We like to look at the situation around us and say, oh, I'm not getting this because of X, Y, and Z, right? Because the white man not letting me get this, or, oh, there's not enough of this to go around, instead of saying, okay, what can I do? How can we build in our communities to get to that next level? You know what I'm saying? Like at some point you got to stop playing the blame game and start looking inside yourself. So we know, okay, whether racism happens or not all the time. I mean, yeah, it does, but we can't sit here and act like 75% of white people are racist, right? Like, because if that was the case, like everybody we work with pretty much is racist. Everybody we around, and just to be honest, like that's not my story. That's not my truth. I would probably say maybe 10% of the people I ever come in contact with over my life, I could question if they were, racist, not 80 or 90. So, you know what I'm saying? Now, once again, we go to systematic. That's totally different. Now, and even when you start thinking about things systematically, right? Like, is it really racist? I just see it as looking out for your people. So we don't come together and say, hey, let's change, we need some of these laws changed, instead of getting caught up in some shiny objects, then we kind of bring it upon ourselves, right? It's a question for anybody. Join me, jump in here.
I mean, for me, man, like, and I know this is like a super triggering topic, but I made a huge mistake. I mean, I used to, coming up, because I thought that way about thinking about racism. I drank the Kool-Aid. Like, I'm in Mississippi, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's so racist down here and all of that. And all I ever did was hung out with black folks. And like, it was in my head as it relates to, like, I rarely hung out with anybody outside of people that look like me. And I didn't realize how much of a deficit I was putting myself in emotionally, mentally, because I was kind of like what you said, Keon, wasn't quite social media, but I still had that mentality. So didn't have the exposures quite yet of the social media, because we were before social media, then it happened while I was in college. And then, like, so meaning I went through college not really interacting with a lot of, people that didn't look like me. And crazy enough, one of the persons that gave me my start was like the dean of business school, who was a white lady and she took a liking to me, and she was trying to really put me on to help, and I couldn't really receive the help because I was mentally twisted up in this victim mentality. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, like, yeah, man, it's crazy. Like, I think we kind of lean on that a little too much, and yes, it has happened. Yes, things have happened, but I just look at it from the standpoint of my grandmother. She paid the cost already. Like, they want us to live a better life and max out what we have now. Like, yo, we not in that time. Like, we not, like Ken said, we not seeing nobody get hung. We're not being hung. Like, and we don't make it today. Like, it's not us being born black. Is not like okay, but we can control our narrative. Like, you got people that was in that time and still made it happen. So it's so hard for me to use that card and have that be a crutch for me. It don't mean I'm ignoring it, but I'm not going to spend all my time on that. Like, I'm gonna figure it out. Like, and I'm gonna rock with the people that got good character, whether they black or white. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm not gonna be, you know, if you black and you're not operating in excellence, and somebody else and they operating in excellence, I don't have no loyalty to you. Like, I'm rocking with people on the basis of their character. If you happen to be black, white, Indian, I rock with you. Naturally, as Ken said, I'll gravitate to the people that look like me. That's just a natural thing that happens. But I can't live my life where I'm excluding other people, and I can't sit here and pretend like some of the success that I've had in my life hadn't been contributed from other people that didn't look like me. And it'll be kind of like a slap in their face. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I gotta acknowledge those things. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know I said a lot there, but I can't ignore that. Like, it's a lot of dope people that don't look like me in the world, and I refuse to be in a box.
Nah, not gonna be in the box either. You know what I'm saying? Because I think it's time for us to start thinking of this in a whole nother way, because we know there are people out here that make money based off of this conversation, right? And they've been making money off of these conversations for years. You know what I'm saying? And I call it, you know, making money off the backs and struggles of Black people, keeping us in this struggle space, keeping us mentally.
I call it struggle pimping, race pimping, struggle and race pimping. Like, you just preaching to the, talking about all this Black power stuff, and you looking at them, they ain't really winning, but how they are making money is off the coming and conjugating and talking about the struggle, and you coming and paying tickets. They coming to a city near you, you paying for it to come hear them, and it sound cool. They get up, they leave town, and they on to the next city, and that's how they making money, touring, writing books, talking about the struggle bus, the struggle conversation. Man, ain't nobody got time for that, man. And you feeling empowered or whatever, and then they leave you back to your life where you need to you back to your regular life. Like, it's crazy. Like, nah.
Yeah, you got to be selling something tangible, meaning like a process or something that's going to help you with quote unquote that struggle, right? But we know people, hey, they sell the struggle. I mean, we see it in the movies. You know, we're overly sexualized, we're overly struggleized. Like, you know what I'm saying? Everybody in the hood sell drugs, everybody in the hood, you know, shoot and gangbang, right? Like, I'm growing up, maybe 5 to 10% of the people in the hood did stuff like that. Everybody else was hardworking, trying to, you know, get by, make ends meet, you know what I'm saying? And come up out their situations. You know what I'm saying? People was good people, good-hearted people. You know what I'm saying? Everybody wasn't trying to kill nobody. Everybody wasn't trying to, you know, do no harm to people. And it saddens me sometimes, because it's like, when it comes to music and movies, that's the only thing we feel like we can sell, which also paints a narrative, right? Like, this is life. Like, right. Nah, that ain't life. Like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, unless you really want to go there, like, it was fun times. It was great. We had, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, growing up, and everybody was poor. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, but then we watch movies like, nah, this is what was going on. Yeah, that was going on, but that wasn't every day. You know what I'm saying? They make
Right.
it sound like this is something that was going on every single day. You woke up and it was every single day. No, it happened though. And sometimes, you know, I feel like even growing up in that, like you have PTSD, you know, from what happened in your childhood based off of situations and situational awareness that you kind of had to have that maybe some kids didn't have to, you know, depending on where they was growing up, right? So, you know what I'm saying? I think we need to start looking at it differently and not just saying, you know, throwing the racism card out there, but also looking at how we can build our communities up and how we can, you know, impact in that way and stop using that card. Like sometimes we got to take the responsibility on ourselves, right? And start working together and doing better. You know what I'm saying? Because if you're doing that, then now that's called little Italy. That's called, you know what I'm saying, Chinatown and all these other little places, right? That tends to thrive without the need of anything else, right? So yeah, man, it's a mindset. I feel like we're shackled in our minds. We can't kick that to see what's in front of us to really grow. If you're a millennial and after, like, times are different. Let's just be 100. Like times are totally different. Everything that you want to achieve is quite in your hands now. So, you know what I mean?
Ken, what you got?
I think it starts with we got to really. I think for I don't want to, you know, this ain't call out time, but we invoke racism a lot and this and that a lot, man, holding us down. But I don't think enough of us do that reflection internally to say, what am I doing to not hold us down as well? Okay, I'm expecting the man to come in and save my people, but have I ever took the time to teach a little young Black boy how to read? Our young Black man is not learning how to read. Like they really not knowing how to read in school. I'm not even laughing or smiling and joking because that's not funny. Like that's something I struggle with in high school, thinking like, man, like I'm having a Black principal and he's telling me like, hey, you one of the first Black males to get a 30 in the school. And you know, he laughed and he's smiling, congratulating. I'm like, yeah, that's dope. But like, I damn sure wasn't the first Black man to come into that school. I wasn't 100th Black man to come into that school, wasn't 1,000th Black man to come into that school. And so figuring out like, man, how can I help us not miss that mark no more? You know what I'm saying? Someone's got to care about us. And so I think before we start pointing fingers, you know what I'm saying, you got to really look internally and say, all right, what did I do for my people before I expect another man to do for my people?
You know, and that's a good point, Ken. And I will say, like, it start with you can't pour something. You can't fill somebody else's cup up if your cup not full. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you don't have a pot to piss in, and you trying to pour into someone else, you don't have nothing to pour. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of times, I think that, like, to go back to one of your questions, is it a race thing or is it a class thing? From, and not that I'm like all knowing, I'm a student of life, always looking to learn, get better, grow, and I'm not above someone saying, you know, I think you may have gotten that wrong. I'm open to evaluating it, but from my vantage point so far, it's a class war. It's not a race war. There are poor white people too. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's definitely a class war. I think it's a class war thing. Like, because when you start getting resources, you can move a little bit different, and you can help others, but not just with resources. Like Keon, you got to help them learn how to fish for themselves and pour into people. But doing that, sometimes it takes resources and payroll and, you know, your time and energy. But most people just complain without no plan or process, like you said, cuz. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it.
I mean, think about this, right? And just piggybacking off of that conversation, we all go to the barbershop, we all go get our haircut. And I'm pretty sure we've all had that conversation with some old head telling us, like, you know, oh, y'all, either you ain't got it the same way we had it, or you ain't got to deal with this, or y'all ain't built like us, you know, all of those type of conversations in the barbershop that these guys have. But then when you ask them, how are you helping with the situations that you're talking about? They get hush mouth, right? So we tend to do that a lot. Whereas like we like to point the fingers and tell people they ain't doing what they supposed to do. But not one time did we reach back and pick our brothers up and say, hey, you know what, man, let me help you. You know what I'm saying? I see you doing some things that's kind of out of line. You know what I'm saying? And maybe you haven't been told. So let me kind of help you out, you know, in these situations. Let me pick you up. And that's not something that we tend to do, you know, in the community. So, man, look, we're going to have to wrap this up now. I know we just kind of getting into it, but yeah, man, it was been a great talk. Maybe we have to pick up this conversation, you know what I'm saying, later. All right, y'all.